We're going to take a simple conversion problem here, convert 15 nanometers per second to miles per hour. Now, the first step using dimensional analysis for any conversion problems will be to start with what you're given. So we can see here that we're given this quantity, 15 nanometers per second. So I'm going to put that right here. Now, I know that I have to get my conversion factors together, and this is one thing that a lot of people have difficulty doing, figuring out which conversion factors to use. So I know I have to go from miles, which is the English system, to meters, which is the metric system. So this conversion factor I can look up, and I know that there's 1.609 kilometers in a mile. So that's great, but I don't have kilometers here. I have nanometers. So I can go about getting rid of my nanometers in one of two ways. I'm going to show you how to determine a conversion factor using your number line. Remember, in the middle, this is your base where there are no prefixes, and then nano. See, remember, this is deci, centi, milli, micro, nano. Okay, this is nano. And remember, this is deca, hecto, and kilo. So we need a conversion factor. We need to know how many nanometers are going to be in a kilometer, because we've got to get rid of that kilometer unit. So let's put our decimal on kilometer. If I have 1 kilometer, I'm going to have how many nanometers? So I'm going to pick up that decimal. I'm going to move it. Alright, I don't have a pencil to erase. I'm just going to cover up that decimal there. And I'm going to fill in all of these spaces with zeros. Okay, so I know that 1 kilometer equals 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 zeros following it. That number looks like this. But gosh, that's a difficult number to write out. So it's going to be easier for me to say 10 to the 12th nanometers. So here's another conversion factor that I've come up with. A kilometer, or a kilometer, equals 10 to the 12th nanometers. Also, take a look at the fact that my denominator here has seconds, and I don't want it to have seconds, I want it to have hours. Remember, there are 60 seconds in a minute, and there are 60 minutes in an hour. So I think that I've got everything I'm going to need. Not completely sure. May end up having to go back and change something. But let's see. I'm going to work on nanometers. I want to get rid of nanometers first. So which one of these conversion factors contains nanometers? That would be this one. So I'm going to put that here, but I have to ask myself, am I going to leave it in this form, or am I going to flip it upside down? If I want to cancel nanometers, nanometers has to be in the bottom. So I'm going to leave it like that is. Okay, and I'm going to put an X through this because I know I've already used it. I'm going to cross out my nanometers here. I'm left with kilometers on top. I don't want kilometers, I want miles. So which of these conversion factors contains both kilometers and miles? That would be this one. So I have to make another decision. I want to cancel kilometers, so that's going to have to go on the bottom. So I'm just going to flip it, 1.609 kilometers in every mile. Okay, now my kilometers cancels. Notice that at this point I have miles per second as my unit. So my top part is taken care of. I have miles on top. That's what I want. So let's get rid of this hours. Let's work on it. Now, in order to change my seconds, I'm going to have to use, I'll mark this out so I know that I don't need it anymore. I'm going to have to use one of these conversion factors. So which one of these contains seconds? It's going to be this one. I want seconds to cancel, so I'm going to want to leave it like it is or have seconds on top. There's 60 seconds in every minute. Now my seconds cancel. I'm still not where I need to be because my units at this point are miles per minute. So I'm down to one conversion factor here, and I think this is going to do it. I want to get rid of minutes on the bottom right here, and I want to have hours on the bottom. So I don't even have to flip this. I can just say 60 minutes is in an hour. So let's collect up our terms here, and let's see what units we're left with. We've got miles on top, and we've got hours on bottom. Okay, hours is just represented by an H. Okay? Now, is this what we want? Yes, it is. So at this point, we're good. We've done all the big work. Now let's just take a look at our numbers. I'm going to pull my numbers off to the bottom and look at them in a separate place. On top, I have 15 times 60 times 60. On the bottom, I have 10 to the 12th times 1.609. And I'm just going to rearrange that to say 1.609 times 10 to the 12th. Well, this is easy. This is going to be 15 times 3600, right? Because 6 times 6 is 36, and I've got 2 zeros. So this number will be 3600. So on top, I'm down to 15 times 3600. And on the bottom, let me just go ahead and round this number. And we'll see that we can probably come very close by rounding. Okay, I've got 1.6 times 10 to the 12th on the bottom. Now at this point, if you're allowed to use your calculator, go ahead. But for us, in my class, we're not using our calculator because we just want to increase our math skills, get a little bit better at them. So let's just go ahead and work out 3600 times 15. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 3 is 15. That's going to be 18. Put my 0 there. And I have to put these 2 zeros there. And then I get 36. So 54, or 54,000. So I'm just going to rewrite that number in scientific notation, 5.4 times 10 to the 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this may seem like it's taken a lot longer, but it's given us some practice with these scientific notation skills that we need. So at this point, I'm just saying, basically, what's 54 divided by 16? But I got a decimal in the middle. If I reduce both of these numbers by 2, 54 divided by 2 is going to equal 27, right? So I can say 2.7 times 10 to the 4th. And this would be 0.8 times 10 to the 12th. Well, from here, I can guesstimate quite a bit. If I had 8 times 3, I would have 24. If I had 8 times 4, I would get 32. So I know that if I divide these two numbers, it's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood between 3 and 4. But I've got this decimal here, so it's going to be in the neighborhood of between 30 and 40. So I've got this about as simple as I can get it without just going ahead and doing the math, unless I want to make an estimation. So 2.7 divided by 0.8. I'm going to have to move my decimal right here. 3 times 8 is 24. That gives me 30. 4 times 8 is 32. So 3 times 8 again is 24. I have 6 left over. Then um, 7 times 6 is going to be 42. 8 times 8 is 64. That's going to be 7 times 8, which is like 56. And I can stop here and just round this to 3.4. Okay, so I can say 3.4 times 10 to the, what is 4 minus 12? That's negative 8 miles per hour. Okay, just to show you the calculator way, if I can find it. And let's see how close we are with some of the math that we've done. All right. 15 times 60 times 60 gave me 5.4 times 10 to the 4th on top, or 54,000. And I'm going to divide that by 1.609 times 10 to the 12th. And I get 3.356 times 10 to the negative 8. So if we rounded that number, we would get exactly what we have, 3.4 times 10 to the negative 8. So let's back up and just review what we've done. Now all of this down here is just a practice in bettering your math skills, because in chemistry we have to know how to change numbers into scientific notation. We have to be able to understand how to add, subtract, multiply, or divide scientific notation. So when we actually go through this, it helps us to reinforce those skills and just gives us a little bit better understanding of how numbers work in general. The main point to what we were doing was the dimensional analysis. So I started with what I was given. That was step one. And then I went down and I listed all of my conversion factors. This one I can find either by looking in my planner, looking in a book, or just looking on the internet for a conversion factor. The conversion factor to go from nanometers to kilometers, remember I use my number line. And being able to change numbers into different numbers on the metric system is a very important skill in chemistry or in physics. Notice here, all I did was to go from seconds to hours. And so I knew that I had 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. Now some of you are already ahead of the game and you know that you can use 3,600 seconds per hour right here instead of doing this twice. So the final answer to this question will be 3.4 times 10 to the negative 8 miles per hour.